there are things happening at this hour as we speak where people are trying to go against their governments and they are asking for the world to help intervene. We have Eric Yaverbaum, who is with Ericho Productions. Good to have you as usual.
Thanks for having me.
Great to be here. And of course my friend Liz Trotta, who we love having all the time here. She's a regular Fox News contributor.
Thank you.
And I know that before the show went on, we were discussing the concerns about what's at stake right now. Is the bar being set too high? What do you think?
Well, you know, everybody's talking about how this, that Rwanda and possibly this operation too is going to be set up as the example for humanitarian progress. I mean, you know, I grew up in the days of the Berlin airlift, which has got to be the sine qua non of humanitarian when it was needed and when it was in the Cold War. But anybody who thinks that we have the money, number one, and I keep getting back to that all the time, to prosecute this adventure is just smoke and dope. It's not there. You can't do it just by air. And what the president made clear last night, by the way, in a very well-written speech, he probably got, I'd like to know who the speechwriter is, because it's very well written, except it was incomprehensible insofar as that this doctrine of humanitarian interference is open-ended. And even when you have even the Secretary of Defense saying that we have no vital security interests, it even gives it less credibility.
Don't you find it incredible that literally a week ago today we were sitting here saying this exact same thing. It's a week later, and we're talking about, did we set the bar too high for the future? We can't afford the present. Forget about the future bar, because we're not going to be able to afford any of them.
Exactly.
It never comes into play in a prevalent way in this conversation. There's no money to be doing this.
Yeah, he didn't say that, and he's not going to
No,
say
he didn't come up at all.
It's somebody else's money. It's the taxpayers' money, so why even bother?
And I'm actually surprised you compliment the speechwriter. I gathered that it was a speech written by a committee. I thought there was things that just didn't fit together for me, and some questions that weren't answered.
Such as?
Well, I still don't. We're not clear on the future at all. We're really not. If Gaddafi stays, if he stays, we lose, period, end of story. Gaddafi has to go.
Well, it isn't the content, but what I'm talking about is the syntax and the interior logic, and it was literate as opposed to some of the other junkies.
Well, let me tell you something. Here, according to the Pentagon, the first week of our intervention in Libya has already cost us $600 million.
Yeah, I read that figure. Yeah,
that's just from the first week.
And we're still shooting missiles at $1 million a pop.
Exactly. So, I mean, this is just the beginning of what is going to be a long-term exercise. And even though we're supposed to be turning over things to NATO, we're still going to be lending support. It's not clearly defined as to what the limits of that support are.
But NATO is us. I love when they say we're going to turn it over to NATO. I mean, who's NATO?
That's another point, too.
But you know, I mean, this week on the political stage, the only thing that's going to elbow this aside is the conversation about the budget that we don't have.
Exactly.
I mean, and they're all tied together.
Exactly.
Why do you think this administration is not willing to go forward and at least tackle that subject head on?
Because he's running for office. As of a few weeks ago when he went to Chicago, he's in the game again.
The race is on, definitely.
The race is on.
But people aren't stupid. They're going to bring this up over and over again. He's going to have to address it at some point. It's going to be an issue. I mean, so why not confront it?
Well, I think,
why doesn't he say, my critics say we can't afford this, blah, 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 blah. And
if you think it's just one history lesson, when he's running for re-election, Bush Sr. lost the economy, which is why he didn't get re-elected. Our economy, it is not going to be repaired for this election. I think that ought to be concern number one for him.
Well, particularly it seems we're talking about $5 a gallon gasoline by the end of the summer.
Exactly.
And the predictions and those kinds of things.
And prices of food. I don't know who's been at the supermarket lately, but I haven't. It's unbelievable.
It is very expensive.
It's really showing up in food now.
And that's what was predicted. That was predicted a few months ago that we were going to start seeing this. I still don't get my sense, maybe I'm missing something. I don't see the real distinctions about what's different about Libya as opposed to what's taking place in other countries right now. The only factor being our specific interest being oil in this situation, if that's really the case.
Well, it's the whole liberal philosophy. I mean, when you've got people like Hillary Clinton and you've got Samantha Power over at National Security, and you've got Susan Rice, these people are all bleeding hearts. They are, the whole MO of the liberal is the great, doesn't care whose money it is.
It may
you
be
spend
that.
money on...
They're saying it's bleeding heart. Okay, I get that. But at the same time saying this is a very specific policy. I don't see it. I mean, you're going to say people are crying out for humanitarian reasons to come and help them. These other countries are asking for the same. And in the past,
we haven't heard that, though.
We heard from Syrian people are asking for some of the United States to come in.
The better they get at Facebook, the more of a chance they'll have of getting our attention.
All I'm saying is that this is, whether or not now, maybe later, but the point is it's going to come up. And how are we going to define what our interests are and the world's interests, and whether or not this is a catastrophe or a massacre that's about to happen to these people in those countries?
Did he use the phrase one size fits all? It's not one size fits all.
I believe he did say that.
I thought I heard that. So he's sort of acknowledging, you know, with the left hand that that this isn't going to apply to every single. Well, if it's not going to apply to every single country, why do this one? And that's still not clear.
But you know something that's interesting. I guess you could say this at any given day, no matter what's going on in history. But this is an interesting lesson in history because this is the president who came into office, you know, talking down Iraq. Who now is spending, now we're in 3 wars. He got elected opposing Iraq, and now we're in 3 different places.
But he still took a shot at Bush when he said it's not going to be another Iraq.
Well, that's right.
He couldn't resist, you know.
Which I thought was really, you know, so not needed in this instance when you're talking about.
I bet that was the one sentence that was debated the most amongst the committee who wrote the speech.
You're probably right about that.